So we will call to order then and convene our meeting. And I need to read our notice that we are meeting by hybrid via Zoom as well as in person. So pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body as well as members of the public may access the meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be at the location above, which is here in Memorial Hall. And it is possible that all members of the public may attend remotely, with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting may be accessed remotely via our link for Zoom. Do I need to read the whole meeting ID? No.
No, as posted.
As posted, okay. It's been posted on the Town of Westborough webpage with the agenda for this meeting. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance or by accessing the meeting remotely, as noted above. Additionally, the meeting will be broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28 and Charter Channel 192 via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/WestboroughTV. I got through it. So thank you, everyone. So we have, the agenda has been published. We have a number of things to cover today. And just wanted to first kind of, on the agenda is just to recognize that the select board in June made a proclamation just in support of Gay Pride Month. We didn't meet in June, so we're a bit behind, but I just wanted to sort of call attention to that and appreciate that. And the proclamation is available on the Town of Westborough webpage, as well as the Select Board published that as well. So I think that those are kind of all the acknowledgements as far as that. Is that any questions or anything to add to that? I think that's stands alone. Okay. Do you all have the agenda down there? Great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I thought there are a couple of things that are going on that we've talked about here around town meeting accessibility. I know we're in July. We don't really want to think about fall yet, and yet it comes up quickly as the summer months go by. So we have October town meeting coming up. And I had just a very brief kind of interaction with John, with a town moderator, John Arnold, about continuing the conversation that we had previously around making town meeting that much more accessible, providing childcare, getting some notice out, some additional information out. And one of the things that I would like to propose is that this group, the Diversity Committee, Diversity and Inclusion Committee, proposed to the Select Board that we put a mailer out to everyone on the postal distribution, the postal code, so everyone who gets mail. So that includes renters, homeowners, everyone who gets mail here in Westborough, to send out a mailer. This would require funding, which is why we would need to bring it towards the Select Board, but I'd like to propose that this committee bring that forward with a request to have that funded and a mailer sent out, basically outlining the topics that would be covered, like so in advance of the meeting, when it's going to be, the kind of what do you need to know about town meeting, one page, maybe a flyer type of thing. I think that we've talked about language accessibility, and I think that's something that more will be done on the childcare, the timing of the meetings. I think the Select Board has taken all those things into consideration with scheduling, but this would also be another way of reaching people who may not be currently aware of it and may not have access to the website or something if they don't have a computer at home. What do y'all think?
I'd be in favour of that as long as we have some way of capturing its effectiveness. Right, so it would be really useful, I think, at the town meeting itself to ask the question, to understand how many people are there because they saw the flyer,
Mhm.
or, for that matter, how many just saw the flyer, are aware of it, right?
Mhm.
And that would give an idea. Do you have a sense of what the cost of
I don't.
would be? And I'm guessing with approximately 6,000 residences, then we're probably looking at, I don't know, a quarter per each.
It's a few $1,000s when we've done other mailings.
$1,000?
A few thousand. There's the printing as well as the actual mailing costs. So, depending on what we print, and if it's a letter versus a postcard style. So what I could do is get some costs for that, because I do think if you take a recommendation to the select board, it'd be helpful. One, we could identify if there are any existing funds to do it for the fall special town meeting. And if not, potentially, and if we don't identify funds that are available to do it for the spring, perhaps at the fall town meeting, look at requesting funding to be able to do that for the spring.
That would make sense, and we can then have the opportunity to explain the proposal and the need. It might also be possible to identify another reason that the town might be sending something out and get extra value from that. Might they?
Couple it with something else that's already being sent. No, that's a good idea. Okay, so a little bit of homework to do before we kind of vote on that. Do you agree? So we kind of table that now. I think, so that would bring us to the next meeting. Are we meeting in August, or are we planning to meet? We haven't had that conversation yet, but we would need to vote again to bring that forward. So we have some time.
When is the warrant for that meeting finalised?
It would be
Is it
September
called a
at
warrant?
the select board.
Typically late
Yeah.
September.
Sorry?
Typically late September, early October. So
Okay,
here's the
se-
challenge.
Several weeks. isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And then maybe that's another consideration. How much of it is actually of impact that people should know about it? Right? Is that a judgment call that we need to make?
In terms
for
of-
example, there was a lot of public interest in the library discussions,
Right.
but and
The
clearly-
timing of the mailing, I think you could do something that's just a general reminder, town meeting is this date. And I think the extent to which you can put sort of the detail about any particular warrant articles, or even some communities do a postcard and it actually lists each of the articles that will be taken up. Kind of, if you have a very lengthy list, you obviously need a bigger postcard. But depending on the timing of when that mailer goes out, if the warrant hasn't been closed and posted, we might not have that information. So I think at this point, it's up to the committee if you are in support of this, is a recommendation, and then would ask that likely staff, maybe working with the moderator, with the clerk's office, we could figure out timing and content. And then certainly, I'm just thinking if we wait till August, that
Yeah.
might even be getting a little bit late.
Yeah, I would be concerned about that as well. So I hear you, Ian, that you're looking for kind of what is the baseline, and how do we know if it's effective, right? And one of the ways that we might be able to do that is to, as you said, ask the question at town meeting. Another may be just the number of participants in town meeting. If we see an uptick, correlation and causation, tricky, but at least we could say something happened, something changed, right? So yeah, Sarah.
No, I was going to say, I think that the mailer is a good idea. I think we even talked about potentially, those robot calls or the calls
yeah.
that come in. Sometimes we get those reminders. I know we get them from the schools. And I want to say we get them from time to time from the town for different things, but there's a large population of people that are more, tech-based, and they're not interested in mailers, and they're going to just throw them out as soon as they come in. While I understand there's a portion of the population that pays more attention to that than they do to the tech part. So I find that those phone messages are a really good reminder, especially if they were to come like the week of, to say, don't forget town meeting this time, this place. And also I would say that when sending out a flyer, if we were to do some sort of mailer, I think it's only fair that all the articles would be
I agree, yeah.
presented. How do you distinguish between what is a hot, you can, but how do you fairly do that? So I would probably be more, I'm not sure how I feel about the mailer, to be very honest, in terms of how much we're going to gain from it. But certainly, you know, I'm open to the idea.
Okay.
I do like the idea of the phone call, that we get regular phone messages from the school administration, and that, to me, is very effective.
Agreed.
And I would guess there's a subset of the town that have children in the school system and a subset of those that have agreed to have the phone messages. But then how do you catch the rest?
Well, I received messages from, for example, the work that's being done on the Rotary. I think there was a phone call announcing that.
Yep, it's through Code Red.
Okay.
I suspect.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that goes out to, do you need to sign up for that, or is that
Yes.
opt-in?
That is opt-in. People
It's
sign up.
opt-in, so.
So I'm trying to think of the last notification I would have gotten from the town. I'm so thinking of the schools because we do
Yeah.
constantly get those. And those are opted as well, because I don't even remember ever opting in for school calls. I'm pretty
think-
sure they just go out as a blast, but I don't know.
But they're two different mechanisms.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mean the towns versus the schools?
Yes.
Correct. I'm just wondering if that is an opt-in system or not, but I don't know, maybe you can shed some light on that in terms of, are there any town messages that go out like that to the entire, do we do that on any level?
We've traditionally reserved the use of Code Red for emergency situations. So I think we could, I mean, if this is something you're interested in exploring, the potential use of it, the potential distribution of a mailer. And I also think, to your point, we're having this conversation in other areas as well. You really need mixed media. Some people are more responsive. We can, whatever goes on the mailer, we could probably have that ready to go out by social media. We can post to the website. So you're kind of, hopefully, people will see it in multiple places, and then some people may see it only in the mail, may see it only on social media. So this idea of using multiple forms of communication to extend our outreach, I think is fair.
Yeah. So maybe I could follow up with, so it sounds like we have a couple of questions before we can kind of take action on this. Am I hearing that right? So, but we know the time gets close, right? I just want to, I agree in terms of if we were to present different articles, I think they all need to be there. I think in the March is when we discuss the full budget, which impacts everyone, one way or another, whether you're a homeowner or not, it impacts everyone. So that is something that, you know, that they're clearly more, it's usually denser. But I think, I don't know what the articles are for coming up for October, but we can just list those and then refer people back to, you know, there's more information available certainly. Last year prior to town meeting, like a one-page kind of descriptor of each of it was for all of the articles, but it was kind of in common language as opposed to some of the kind of more formal language of the warrant. So, and it was just a one-pager and it covered all the highest sort of, the biggest, I don't think it actually addressed all of them, but it addressed those that had a larger text or larger needed more information on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It is tricky though, because then we get into something that, you know, you wouldn't think is sort of going to have as great an interest, and there are people who are really interested in that. So it's really hard to decide what, you know. I think the fair thing is just to point people back to the warrant and say these are the articles that will be discussed. And I think when it gets into some of the budget stuff, that can get a little complicated, and maybe a more common language explanation of some of those things would be helpful.
Yeah, so I think part of, you know, the issue is sort of going back to the basics. I think unfortunately, we tend to just presume that people are aware that this town meeting happens, that important decisions are taken, the budget is decided. I think we take that all for granted.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a mistake. I think that we need to realize that you have a lot of people who know that, and you have a lot of people who don't know that. And when they ask the question later as to how did something get decided, and they're not aware of the processes that were undertaken to do that, I think that's a problem, you know? And so I'm not sure, I mean, what the perfect structure for this is. You know, I think in my mind, it's something so informal as you know, obviously it cannot go out from on a town level to be so informal, but, you know, hey, this is where your tax money is going to be allocated essentially. So come and speak up, basically. I think that some announcement or something, you know, in a more eloquent fashion, obviously. I'm just not, I think people toss out paper.
Yeah.
I think like I do.
So it wouldn't be that effective, and it would cost.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Kim that it's definitely effective in certain populations, but I think the vast majority, or at least, you know, if we're talking about, and I'm not actually aware of what the demographic breakup is in our town, of what percentage it falls into what age range, but I certainly think the younger population, you know, doesn't even check their mail for like weeks at a time. So.
Well, so it sounds like we need to maybe investigate the robocalls. We know that it's already out on social media, right? The town social media stuff. We have also, you know, that one-page thing, you know, flyer that was kind of an explainer was also on town media. The town page, but it was also put onto like local Facebook groups and things like that. So it was was available there. It sounds like we need to investigate the robocall, and then we need to investigate the cost of a mailer. And if the cost is minimal, and maybe, you know, we do recognize that there are some people who might prefer it in paper because they can put it up on their, I don't know, they can hang it up as a reminder or something. Be great if there could be like a QR code on it, so people can then go to the warrant.
And that's what we've heard and feedback in multiple venues is that, to your point, not everybody, a lot of people, that paper goes right in the garbage. A lot of people don't check email frequently enough. So it's really this idea that there's no perfect solution. Yeah. So trying to be as efficient, especially when there's mailing costs. Yeah. But I also just thought is, I don't know that you have to investigate these things. I think you could suggest that the committee has had discussion around, you know, expanding knowledge and information leading up to, including looking at some of these means as getting additional information to the public.
Also, I would say, so they usually have that in downtown. They have the big sign. What do you call that electronic sign that they have? So they'll usually put out, I think the week before it goes out. Yes. I don't know if we have other digital methods. Like, I don't know, do we have anything that's here at the town hall that has anything electronic that sits in the front of the town hall for purposes of information? No, right?
Not here at town hall.
Okay.
The library's got a cute little lettering system for sending out some light-hearted messages. Maybe they could help as well.
Yeah, certainly.
And I think the idea of cross-communication, cross-advertising through the recreation department, through the library department, through the senior center. We try to do that when there are big events or things coming up. I think we're getting better at that, is just pushing it out through those established networks and communication chains. So I think that, to me, fits under what we're talking about as well. If we develop a flyer, if it gets mailed, if it doesn't, if it just gets distributed through all of, you know.
And if the flyer is simply, you know, information about when and where and who can come, because I think that's another thing, to Sarah, to your point, people don't know that they can actually vote there, you know, so that's something that might want to be included. Like, this is where these decisions are made. And so, because we may not have the information from the warrant at the time that we need to sort of finalize it, but if we can put a QR code on it or something to point people back to where the warrant will actually reside. And then, Kim, I like what you just said about not that we don't need to do that. So where would that reside? Who can we submit?
I mean,
that
I think you can make
to?
I think what it does, the select board, I think after the spring, the annual town meeting, had some discussion and recognized there are probably opportunities to do some of the things we're talking about. I think this committee's endorsement of further exploring those, and then it would likely rest in our office, the town manager's office, and collaborate with other departments, the town clerk's involved with town meeting and scheduling. So I think we have the staff resources to follow up on some of these ideas.
just a follow-up to that, sort of, because we did talk about it with Mr. Arnold. Is there anything happening on the town level as far as investigating? He sort of mentioned something about looking towards electronic voting, remote voting, things of that nature, or do you know if there's anything?
So we
in
already
progress?
use electronic voting
Right.
within town meeting.
Right.
As far as any remote voting, that is currently, the state does not allow that.
Okay, I think was there some roundabout, something that some towns are doing that he referred to, which was.
That's only towns that have representative town meeting. During COVID, representative town meeting was allowed to do remote meetings, and I believe that was extended. But as an open town meeting form of government, we're not able to do that.
Okay, so there's no virtual
No.
at all.
And that's, again, state statute.
Right. And also, we would need to adjust the bylaws to include that, wouldn't we? We don't know because because it's
yeah.
state statute, so we haven't looked, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're
Right.
just not allowed to do it right now.
I thought that he had mentioned something specific that was being looked into to get, I don't know.
It was extending representative town meeting.
Was it? Okay.
The
Yeah.
provisions that were put in place during COVID to allow them to meet
Right, but
remotely.
at his presentation, I know this came up as a question, and I
Yeah.
thought him addressing it, that we're far out from it, but we're looking into it. So maybe it was more on a state level that he was talking
Yeah.
about. I think I might have misunderstood, because he's part of all that, so.
Yeah, he was talking about,
Yeah.
I remember the reference, but I think,
Yeah,
it's- it
that's
is
probably what
further.
it was.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get there one day. But in terms of just closing out the conversation around this particular piece, draft a letter can we just draft a letter to the select board and say, and with what we just described, and ask the select board to, basically, we want to continue outreach, we want to think about multiple ways of getting out the word, whether it's, to investigate robocalls, to investigate a mailer, to see if that's something that can be done, and then additional information available on the website. Is that? I think we probably should vote that we should do that. So the motion would be then, and Alma, sorry, I'm not calling on you but we see you. I don't know if you had anything to add to that. I'm sorry if I missed it. But the motion would be to go forward and draft a letter to the select board requesting that they investigate additional means of communicating information about town meeting across multimedia. I'm making a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
And then you'll need to take a roll call
Because we're
vote.
hybrid.
Because we're hybrid.
Okay, so
So you just need to state
we
your
have a
last name.
second, so all in favor, and I'll say Lang, aye. You have to say your last name, sorry.
Shamsuddin, oh, sorry.
Lions, aye.
Thank you.
Shamsuddin, yes.
Yes, and Alma?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right, thank you for that, and more to come when we meet next. The next item on the list on the agenda is the Civic Leadership Academy. If you all have seen the announcement from the town that a new Civic Leadership Academy, I think it's an 8-week program. Kim, do you have more information on
I'm
it?
trying to get the PowerPoint
Oh,
that I
I'm
have to open. Nope. It's 8 or 9 weeks.
Yeah,
And I have all the details.
great.
I unfortunately will just be able to speak to them because this is being glitchy.
Should we come back to it
Sure.
on the agenda while she's finding it?
Yeah, we can come back.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go into the minutes. Did we get minutes for this 316?
No, we're not. set
Okay,
for those.
so we're going to skip the agenda for the minutes because those haven't been published yet. So we'll review those in the next session. The senior needs, I think, is you as well, isn't
Yeah.
it? Okay, so
Okay, sure.
what do you want to do first?
Let's do senior needs.
Senior needs, okay. So we'll hear from you on
Sure.
the senior needs assessment. Thank you.
Okay. You've had a few updates along the way that we were We engaged the UMass Boston Gerontology Institute to complete a community needs assessment that was focused on identifying needs of our seniors. We received the report and then had a presentation from the UMass research team earlier. It was late spring. My update to you is we heard a lot of themes we were expecting to hear, and I'll summarize those in a moment. We now have a working group. So the report lays out the survey data as well as information received through focus groups and identifies the themes and has some high-level recommendations. We now, and Alma is involved in this, we have a working group that is now putting together an implementation plan. So we're basically identifying objectives and then actions and timelines and resources or champions to move these forward. This is something similar. We've seen other communities who have done similar needs assessment have used this format, so I think it will be a good help us take the next steps with actual implementation. That implementation plan is due to be presented to the select board. It's due by October 1st. One of the things that we are looking at as we move through this, the idea that while the town has resources that serve the senior population, the wants, desires, the things that we heard, they're not all things that are necessarily the sole responsibility of the town to provide. So we are also looking at what other agencies, entities, who else in the community do we engage? So that's part of our discussion and conversation. Some of the key themes, we heard concerns for individuals who want to age within this community, whether it's within their own home or whether it's downsizing. There are concerns about their ability to do so based upon cost of living, on a fixed income. And one of the things that I think we hear a lot of conversation about is the lack of housing options for people who may wish to downsize. We know that's an issue here in this town. We know that's an issue statewide. So we're having some discussion around, housing is very broad, the ability to age in the community, looking at things that could be done, additional supports, everything from helping individuals just stay more safely in their homes. We had a significant number of survey respondents who were open to downsizing into rental units. So we're looking at this, trying to piece it together, and we're also talking about opportunities for enhancing awareness of tax abatement programs, any of the programs that exist that would help people financially. So it's talking about housing is a big nut to crack, but that's clearly something we expected to hear about. We also heard about transportation and the need as people age to plan for or have access to transportation, everything from social aspects of their life to getting to critical medical appointments. And while we do provide transportation currently through the senior center, we're looking at a broader, what is the impact? There are programs out there across the country helping people just plan for the idea that at some point, if you can't drive, have you thought about and planned for that? Helping people identify when it may be time to reduce their driving. Maybe they don't give up their license, but they don't drive in the evening. They don't drive when it's dark, those types of things. We're also looking at opportunities to work with other entities in town. In some cases, transportation to events outside of our normal hours. Are there other entities that can step up? Can you rely on volunteers? How do you help family members? There's a lot to that one. We also heard about an interest in programs outside of there was a lot of acknowledgement of the important programming that's offered at the senior center for many of our residents And then there was also an interest in other programming that I think was characterized as more educational, social, recreational types of programmings. And one of the things we've already done, Alma and I have had conversations with the recreation department, with the library director, the idea that programming and things that seniors could be interested in or take advantage of don't just have to be programs that are housed and offered through the senior center. So, there's an opportunity for the library to we've talked about cross-promotion of events that are happening at the library, cross-promotion of recreational opportunities. So we're already starting to work in sort of that area. Alma, feel free to jump in at any point.
Oh, you've got it covered, Kim.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not missing. So I guess what I want to, without getting into all of the detail here, because that was a 45-minute presentation, the report is online. We are working to come up with the next steps relative to implementation. And I think the thing I wanted to share here, as we are looking at programming and as we are looking at expanding programming, we want to ensure that we have programming, as we're talking about the diversity of the community. When you're talking about seniors, it's that diversity within the senior population. You have what are referred to, within that age, which here we got survey responses from 55 and older. Your needs of your 55 to 60-year-olds are different from maybe your needs of your post-retirement seniors in their 70s, which vary from the needs and wants of those in their 80s. So we're talking about a diverse group. We're talking about diversity in all of the ways that we've talked about it, the socioeconomically, culturally. So all of that, we're trying to make sure as we get to the point of looking at programming that we're doing it through that lens as well. And I think the good thing is we have opportunities for partnerships, and we know other communities are starting to be more cognizant of this when they're looking at services for seniors. We do know that the area that there's support at the state level, so we're trying to make sure we don't feel that we have to go this alone. The other thing, Alma, while we're here, do you want to talk about the caregiver respite program and the expansion of that?
Oh, sure. We have applied for some money through the ARPA program to start 2 different kinds of sort of respite care programs to help out with some of our caregivers. That was one of the things that was mentioned quite frequently from the survey, was that people didn't have support if they were caring for a loved one at home. And in September, October, in that time frame, we'll be starting a Saturday afternoon. We'll start with 1 day a month and see how it goes. There are other centers in the area who call it the Daybreak program. It's basically a 3.5 hour program that you could leave your loved one with us. And we do lunch and activities and music and whatever, and you could go get your hair done or go grocery shopping or do whatever you need to do. And then I'll be looking for some wonderful volunteers that we will do some training with, so that they could be on, if they could commit a couple hours every week to going to sit in the home with someone who maybe isn't necessarily a dementia patient, but maybe someone who's more homebound or whatever, but they can't be left alone. And they would be able to, like I said, go to a doctor's appointment or go, take care of business at the bank or whatever. And someone would be there with them. So we're really excited about getting both of those programs up and running. Our outreach case manager, Stephanie Keene, and I have been working for the last couple weeks on job descriptions and putting things together to get this up and running. So we're looking forward to it, and it'll definitely offer another avenue for folks in our community that just need a little more help, so.
Great. Congratulations on the grant. And
Thank you.
If people are
Blame,
interested,
blame Christie, it wasn't my idea. She offered, so I took advantage of it.
if people are interested in volunteering, they can. Where should they go?
Here,
Just call you.
call me or email.
Okay, great.
I'm usually here every day, so, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I know there's some folks out there that really can use some help, and I know there's folks out there who really want to help, so we should be able to get this up and running and make it work.
And again, I think we want to make sure that we have a very broad reach into the community and that it is something that individuals who maybe have not historically taken advantage of these services would feel comfortable doing so. You know, one of the things that came through loud and clear too in the survey responses and through the focus groups is the need for more communication about programming and services. And as much as we, you know, there is a senior scene newsletter that goes out, you know, we've been identifying opportunities to use things like the recreation department's mailing list, the library's mailing list to help promote these programs, because particularly the programs, something like this, it's a really, it can serve, you know, there's a great need for somebody who's a caregiver to get just that couple hours of respite. So we want to make sure that we're getting the word out.
Great.
So the plan is that, again, the implementation plan is in the works, and what I would like to do, I'm on the working group, as is Alma. I think as we get closer at a subsequent meeting, we'd like to probably share that with you and perhaps get some feedback, particularly when we get to, I think some of the subsections of that might be a good opportunity to get some feedback related to the D&I lens.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I'd love to hear it. Yeah. All right, we look forward to it. Thank you thank you both for the updates. And maybe September is the timing for that, in our September meeting, to hear a little bit more? Okay, great. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Don, I'd like to think that by the end of September when we meet, that I'll have a better, or a good update for you for this.
Okay, by the end of did you say the end of September?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
By the time we meet again
We
in
meet in the
September,
third
I'm
week.
hoping.
Okay, great. That would be great.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We're just going to be on hold for a second while we get the presentation. I know that you have a time, but I think we're running pretty well against the agenda. So we've covered most items on the list. Are you able to? Okay,
Yes,
great.
I think I'm better off sharing via Zoom.
Okay. I think you
I'm
did
just
it.
going to go with this.
Yeah.
I can't get it via Zoom. So, thanks. All right. So, we're back to talking about the Civic Leadership Academy.
Mhm.
So this is something that back in 2015, the town pulled this together, did a session, and it was one time. Basically, the concept is to introduce residents to the functions and features of town government, And then hopefully generate interest in serving on boards and committees. Select Board member Shelby Marshall has indicated this was what spurred her interest in getting involved. So the idea is it is a sort of class introduction over a period of weeks. Individuals will have an opportunity to meet with various departments, as well as introduction to some of the boards and committees, just to get a basic understanding of local government. So we're limiting it to 15 residents. In part, Alma has a van that 15 individuals can fit on, and some of the sessions may include field trips. So, but then the key things here, there is an application on the town manager's website that is due next Friday, July 28th. My colleague Owen Page is spearheading this, pulling this together, the coordination. He is away today. That's why I'm fumbling through this. But we are basically looking to have individuals express their interest by next Friday. We'll review the applications. It is a 9-week session starting September 3rd. It runs through November 8th. It's a 2-hour commitment, 6:30 to 8:30 on Wednesdays. And then there will be a graduation ceremony at the November 14th Select Board meeting. And we do have a syllabus. It may be posted online, but we do have the departments lined up. Topically, participants will hear from everyone. And then there will be really the opportunity for lots of questions and answers, and hopefully we get a crop of folks who wish to stay civically engaged. So again, that application is due next Friday, the 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the target audience for this? Is it just open to everyone, or?
So we're looking for residents, and we're looking for members of the community, ideally who don't have much prior involvement or understanding of local government. It's really geared to start at sort of a foundational level, and so the hope is that somebody who's always wondered and thought maybe would use this as an opportunity to learn more.
So is this an opportunity to push information out to a relatively small group of people in the hope, or is it in the hope that some of those small group of people will decide to contribute back?
Yes. The hope is, the way these are structured, and this is a concept that exists across the country, that's what it really is to individuals who think maybe I want to serve and I want to have a better understanding and maybe fully understand the options that might be available and which areas might I have an interest in. The starting point is to go through the Civic Leadership Academy, get an understanding of different areas and functional areas of town government, and then decide, I really have a strong interest in finance. I'm interested in the finance committee, or we've got so many boards and committees that they would just be able to find something that suits their interests and their ability to commit, because different boards and committees require different commitment levels.
So
where would such people be hiding?
They're out there. We know because we've heard from some who have already signed up.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you're going to be running this every 7 to 9 weeks, or is it just this first? I mean, I imagine you're going to run this.
Yes, I don't. That schedule, the cadence in which we'll schedule it hasn't been determined yet. I mean, some of that you get into early spring town meeting, so maybe there would potentially be. Yeah, I think it really lines up with the calendar.
But I mean, multiple cycles of it through the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great.
I think provided that there's the interest, we would be happy to do so.
What kind of interest are you seeing right now?
I don't think we've filled all 15 slots, so there is still an opportunity for applicants.
And there are openings on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, so maybe maybe someone will spark their interest to join here.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think this is, I'm excited about it. I wish I can't do it this time, but I hope in the future to be able to attend. But I think it's just, this goes to what we've been talking about getting more people involved. And hopefully, but with this first class, word will get out. They'll bring it back to the people that they know. I'm excited about it.
How are you pushing out the advertising on this? Like, is it just going that, I mean, are you sending out emails or just
Yeah.
post it on the web?
It's on the website. It's been on social media. It was talked about at select board meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've talked about it at department head meetings and asked departments and liaisons to various boards and committees. It's been, board and committee chairs have been notified, so, yeah. And if someone has an interest in serving and isn't necessarily interested or available to participate in the class, we do on the town's website have a list of all of the boards and committees in the current board and committee openings. So certainly you could apply to participate without going through this process.
One of the things that I've done is to make a list of links for town vacancies, for service clubs, for different things that are of interest perhaps of people, and most people who move to this town that I've met have expressed an interest in getting involved, whatever that might mean.
Right.
And so I've got that as almost a boilerplate thing that I send out to everybody that I meet that might have that interest. One suggestion for this particular activity would be the Westborough Newcomers Club, which is a great way that new people coming to the town, especially those with young families, which most of them seem to be, and consequently probably have time limitations on for their availability. But they're the sort of people that come here thinking they want to get involved in some way other than just through the schools.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that. So even if somebody this plants the seed and it's not, now's not the best time, but in the future they look back when they have some free time, it'd be great.
Good suggestions. I'm excited about
The
it.
other thing that might be useful as a group of people with potentially more time on their hands is that Del Webb over 55 residential community. Firstly, you have a demographic of people who have got way too much time to play pickleball and who probably in that sort of 55, but they're sort of either slowing down in their careers or family commitments and might have that interest of one, serving, and secondly, getting involved.
Yep.
So I think that went out too through those sort of cross channels that you talked about through Westborough, the library, the rec center, things like that. And I think the Newcomers Club is a great idea, and if any of you, if all of us also share that with the groups that we're involved with, I think that would be, just to try to get the word out. It is a time commitment, but I think, as you said, if you're able to make that time commitment, that's great, but it's also just kind of getting the word out that these things are available and that committee positions are also available. So if people are interested in getting involved, as you said, each committee has its differing time commitments and one might fit for you. So thank you for that. And it would be great to hear from Owen at some point and see, just kind of how it all went. We'd love to hear back on that. I think that we have gotten through the majority of our agenda. There are a couple of things around issues and correspondence around upcoming events, and I'm not aware of any upcoming. Do you have any announcements or anything, Sarah? No. Ian, do you? Alma? Any announcements or upcoming events that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have, it's kind of a save the date at this point, but Westborough Connects is doing their aging in Westborough program on the 10th of September, which is a Sunday. I don't know the time and all that, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more information out about that in the next few weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Kim, did you have any other events coming up?
No.
Other than what we've already discussed. We've already talked about a lot. There was an item on the agenda for local achievement acknowledgements. I'm not sure what that was.
I think that's just to illustrate what the topics might be under.
Oh, I
Because I
see.
think in the past, we've talked about things that would fit in that category.
Got it, okay. And then, so I think that we have determined that we will meet in August. Does that time still work for everyone? Is there, in other words, is there anyone who knows that they won't be able to meet and that we should postpone? If not, I'd like to just go forward with it. Does that work? Okay, so
I'm sorry, I missed that. Is it August 17th?
August, yeah, third Thursday. of the month.
Thursday.
Yeah, same time.
Okay.
So, yeah, August 17th, that's right. And sorry, checking my own calendar as well. Yeah, so let's go forward with that. Do you have any items that you want to add, that you want to add now, or have future, to add on for a future agenda item? We can definitely hear back, I think, on the town meeting accessibility that we just talked about. So we'll hear an update on that. It sounds like the implementation of the senior needs assessment would be further out into September, but that's also for future. And then we did mention Zach earlier. We did talk about the position, and I think that is, we'd love to hear more about that too.
Well, let me just,
Yeah.
because I don't, so our economic development, the title is now Economic Development Director.
Right.
That position is vacant. Zach had a
I
great
don't know.
opportunity
She did have a good
and moved on, so we are looking, the position, we're currently recruiting to fill that position. I think the context here is, Alma, can you mute? I'm sorry. It's okay. I think the context here is Zach, a number of the initiatives that he was leading on behalf of the Economic Development Committee and that department, he was giving us regular updates, in particular
Right.
as it related to women and minority-owned business outreach and just a number of things. So certainly our hope is that all of those initiatives will continue with the transition with a new director. I don't foresee our interest in maintaining those changing, but I do know a lot of that work was, he did a lot.
Well, and it was in progress, I think there were a
Yeah.
lot of plans, so we'd love to hear how the plan for
Yes.
continuing those open things, and like you had mentioned earlier, the events, and it'd be great to see those continue as
Yes.
well. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we do have we have a sustainability coordinator position that was funded, and we do have someone starting in that role next week. So that really is going to pull many of the sustainability related work that's being done across departments under one position. The other piece of that position is a community development assistant, and there is some work that position will do aligned with some of the economic development work. And then we're continuing to recruit for a number of positions. The good news is I feel like the labor market might be improving, but knock on wood. I think it's just been challenging, as many people have experienced. It's a tough time for anybody to be hiring, but we've had some great recent hires, and we're encouraged that that will continue.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that this committee, maybe before my time, but it was that one of the objectives of this committee was to kind of take a look at making sure that diversity and inclusion is also kind of thought about through the hiring process, the recruitment process. And so maybe that's a future, since there's a lot of activity happening around that right now, maybe that's something that we can kind of look into, because what are creative ways to, because when you expand your candidate pool, you hopefully are also getting more qualified people who are also representing diverse communities.
Yeah.
So I think that goes to the mission here. So I would be interested in talking more about, or learning more about the process around hiring within town employees. Does that make sense? Okay, yes, all right. So that's a future topic. Any others that, I mean, that we can continue to add? So if you, if you have others that come up over the next couple of weeks, let me know and we can add to the agenda. But I think we've covered our planned agenda for today. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add? Kind of keeping. All right, well, we've had a midsummer quick meeting. Shall we adjourn and get back to our midsummer? So I think we need a motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion, and
I'll second the
you'll
motion.
second it. All right, thank you.
And then just a reminder, it's a roll call vote.
Yeah, so we have to do the voting.
Yeah, well, and yes.
Thank you.
Shamsuddin, yes.
Lang, yes.
Come on, Jess.
Thank you. All right, and we are adjourned.